Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Heavily Contested Hoops podcast. My name is Peyton Mitchell, and today we're going to talk about day 4 of the NCAA tournament and the second round matchups we saw with some few storylines that I am starting to cook up and see that are going on in the world of college basketball after these upset losses and just losses that we have seen. So let's go ahead and get started with the game, in my opinion, that I was most looking forward to. Number 5, St. John's versus number 4, Kansas. What a game we had for this one. St. John's ends up winning 67-65 at the buzzer when St. John's was leading this game by 14. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is I've been watching Kansas all year, especially these Monday night, Tuesday night games that they played in the Big 12 on ESPN. Bryson Tiller tonight was nowhere to be found. 0 points on just 2 shots and only 5 rebounds. He has had now 3 games in a row where he's only combined for 5 points scored. That is not the recipe for success for this Kansas squad when they were looking to make their first Sweet 16 appearance in the last 3 years. So saying that, Bryson Tiller was nowhere to be found, and a big reason as to why this Kansas team looked stale throughout the whole game. And even in their last game against Cal Baptist, where they only ended up winning by 8, even though they had led the whole game, and they ended up letting them get back into it. That's a big reason for Bryson Tiller not being there to have that supporting role that he had throughout the year. And now there's a big reason to say why this possibly could have happened. The fact that Kansas was a better squad this year when Darren Peterson was not playing. Tonight, he had 21 points on 5 for 15 shooting and 3 of 8 from the three-point line. But this Kansas team looks completely different with him on the court than when he is off the court. They play a lot better and more cohesively together when Darren Peterson is not playing. And that's probably because they're not used to him being on the court. I don't know what goes on inside of practice, but without him, statistically, Kansas is a better squad. And Darren Peterson this year was just a big disappointment, in my opinion, for the way he didn't want to play out there and never really gelled with his team. But now let's talk about the end of this game. Let's go ahead and talk about St. John's for Zuby Ejiofor, who had 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. He led the team in every single category, and he was just absolutely stellar. Everything he did had a complete impact on the game, and it just was a big reason as to why they held on to this 14-point lead and didn't vanquish it away. But let's talk about the end of game situation where St. John's was up 14, like I said, and Kansas came back and tied it up. It was tied with 14 seconds left, about that, and St. John's had the ball on the opposite baseline, and Kansas had fouls to give. Now, as we saw with Bill Self's emotion on how Kansas was giving these fouls that they had to give, it was the complete right plan, and you can't say that it's against basketball to do this. They're trying to win a game. It is win or go home. So they are doing anything they can to win. But they did not execute the first 2 fouls that they had to give in the way that they needed to. They fouled right away when the ball came in, and it only knocked off a second of the clock. If they let it wait a second and then foul, that takes 2 more seconds off the clock. So instead of St. John's having 3 seconds at the end of the game, they only have 1, and they're having to force a heave because there was no timeouts left for either team at that point. But now, before they got to the fouls to give, we got an absolute thriller from Dylan Darlin, who hit the biggest 2 points of the night, where he only had 1 for 5, or he was 0 for 4 shooting before this one, and this layup was an absolute thriller. And the 3 seconds that Dylan Darlin, the 2 points that he had were the biggest 2 points of the night, especially when you learn that he called his number and Rick Pitino was like, all right, we're going with it. And then he walked away and was like, wait, he hasn't made a shot all game. That is the kind of respect you want to have with players and coaches, but also that's the kind of, if you can trust in yourself in March, you're going to help your team go a long way. I would have never known that Dylan Darling was 0 for 4 if I was not paying attention to that game based off just the way he shot that layup at the end. He took that with confidence and called his own number, took the high ball screen at the top of the key, took it to the rack strong, and they went home and they're moving on to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999. Now, let's go ahead and move to another thriller that was played today. And all I'm going to say is absolutely wow between number 1 Florida and number 9 Iowa. This was a 73-72 ball game at the end of the game, and this game was physical the whole way through. It was absolutely physical, hard-nosed. You had both coaches, and they were both going at it, screaming at each other. There are things that I'm not going to say because they were saying those things to each other. This was a physical game, and this is exactly what we wanted to see from a Florida squad and an Iowa squad. Iowa's up 12 in the second half. The fact that Florida was able to get back in this and should have won this game. We're going to talk about why they did not end up winning this game, but they should have won this game. This game was theirs to lose. There was a mistake down the stretch that I felt that they did not need to put the pressure on the ball, taking it down the court with the amount of time left that was on the clock, which has ended up hurting them in the long run. But first, I'm going to highlight Alex Condon, who had 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. This is a big man with 7 assists. He's going to be a star in the NBA, or just to show up. He was great the past 2 years with Florida on their national championship run, and this year. You hate to see the way it ended for him, but that was an absolute great performance by him today, and he did everything he could to win. They even tried to get him the ball at the end of the game, which was not the right decision, in my opinion, by Xavier Lee there. But on Iowa's side, Bennett Stritz was 0 for 9 from the three-point line. That's unheard of. The fact that their best three-point shooter was 0 for 9 from the three-point line, and they still found a way to win, that's an Iowa squad that Florida, you just got to tip your caps to them and be like, you were the better team today. You figured out how to win down the stretch. We'll get you next time. That's all you can say about that. Another play that was just eye-popping to me was Tavion Banks. He was absolutely special, knocking down anything that he needed to do. He had 20.6 rebounds. There was 1 and 1 early in the game. I have no idea how he got that shot to fall, but that really set the tone, because that was a hard foul and one that he made, and I feel like they were just getting at each other, and it really made this game physical. Now, let's talk about this last play, this last sequence of the game here. Why did Florida press full court on the second to last possession of the game? This allowed Iowa to run down the court off of an open screen and have a 3-on-2. The 3-on-2 allowed, let me get my guy's name right, Alvaro Folgueras to have a wide open shot in the corner. Actually, he didn't even just have a wide open shot in the corner. He could have took it to the rack if he wanted to and tied the game. But he trusted in himself and absolutely knocked that corner 3 down with confidence. And he made the shot in March that really is going to live on for, this is probably the biggest upset in the tournament so far. The 9 over the defending champion of Florida for last year. This is the biggest upset, in my opinion, in the tournament this year so far, because of that shot that Alvaro Folgueras hit in the corner, choosing to trust in himself and shoot that 3 with confidence instead of taking it to the rack and tying the game. He was calling game, and he hit that. But now, let's talk about to where on the last possession, why did Xavier Lee pass that shot up? He went to pass it instead of just take it to the rack. There's a high chance that they were going to foul him in that situation. But he made a tough decision to give the ball up, which you can't complain. He was trying to make a play. At the end of the day, it was not the right play in that situation, but he was trying to make a play. Other than that, they gave us an absolute great game to watch. It was physical. It had a comeback. It had the buzzer beater type shot at the end. And there was a chance to win it at the end, but they didn't even get a shot off. So it really goes what could have been, but you had the upset there. So nobody really cares. You got the upset. this is the kind of teams that are going to be Cinderella from now on. Like your 9 seeds, your 10 seeds, your 11 seeds, that's going to be your Cinderella at this point of the way NIL has changed everything in college basketball. Let's move on to the early game today. Number 2, Purdue versus number 7, Miami. This game was close early. Miami was up 2 at the break, but there was just something about Fletcher Lawyer today where he could not miss. It was his day, and there was nothing you could do about it. He was 6 for 7 from the field, 4 for 4 from 3, and 8 for 8 from the free throw line. You're not gonna win games when guys have days like that, because it is very hard to lose when you cannot miss. Purdue shot 22 free throws to Miami's 10 and only missed 1. They were 21 of 22 from the free throw line, and that is where the game was won. Outside of Fletcher Lawyer, the game for Purdue was won at the free throw line. And Fletcher Lawyer shot 8 for 8 from the free throw line. So it racks up that they ended up winning by 10. Miami only shot 10 free throws, and that is where they ended up winning the game. But I'm going to go ahead and give some credit to Shelton Henderson, who was 9 for 11 from the field, 18 points, 8 rebounds. He was doing everything he could to keep Miami in this game. And there, you would probably not believe me if you didn't look at the score that Miami was leading this game at halftime. Outside of that, it was all Fletcher Lawyer and the Boilermakers in the second half, and that really allowed them to pull away from the free throw line. And they did it. If you make your free throws, you're going to win ball games, especially when you're 21 of 22 from the free throw line. But to highlight Miami's season, after a terrible season last year, round of applause for Jay Lucas in year 1. Can't wait to see what you do in year 2 when you get your full time, and this is year 2. You get to make that big jump forward from what you already did this year. 3rd in the ACC. That's a huge accomplishment, especially when you have teams like Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, all right there with you. You took yourself from the bottom, you took yourself to the top, and it was a great year all around. It hurts to see it end like that, but ready and excited to see what Jay Lucas has in store for us next year. Now, let's talk about this number 6 Tennessee versus number 3 Virginia. Now, I thought in this game, Virginia never had a chance. The fact that they did have a chance was because of Thies Ritter. He changed my mind. He had 22 points and was 4 from 6 from the three-point line, and it was absolutely pure. Every time he touched the ball, I was just in awe of his shot. It was pure all night long, and he allowed them to get back into this game after I felt like Tennessee had it comfortably in hand throughout this game. It was disappointing to see that Jakari White was cold tonight compared to last game against Wright State. He was only 2 for 9 from 3 tonight, and he had a wide open shot in the corner to where he just airballed and didn't hit anything of the rim. That would have put it within 2 if he hit that on an out-of-bounds play where they just left him wide open. And that's a fact. I would never have left him wide open in that situation. There was so much space, it made him miss that shot because he was never expecting that. You're not leaving a guy like Jakari White, who just had an insane 27-point game, 2 days before that. You're not going to leave him wide open from the corner when you're only up 5 and to cut it to a 2-point game. That was crazy. Jakari White, just absolutely cold, changed the way. If he makes a few of those shots, there's a chance I'm sitting here saying Virginia won this game, and I never thought it was going to happen. Tennessee, though, they're not a 6 seed. This is not a 6 seed team that they lost games in the SEC early in the year due to injuries and the fact that the SEC is a strong conference. The fact that teams are getting so much better and the gap is narrowing, that's why we're seeing teams like Tennessee be 6 seeds and not 3 seeds when Virginia's a 3 seed who only had 6 losses. Tennessee had 11 losses, but those were losses like Illinois. They were Alabama. All good teams, Florida, Kentucky. These are all good teams that they're losing to. So Tennessee is a high caliber 6 seed that is probably one of the best 6 seed in the history of the tournament. But Jacoby Gillespie is the Maryland transfer. He was nothing new to March last year. He had 21 points and 6 assists tonight. But the guy that really caught my eye was Bishop Boswell, who had 9 assists. He also got it done scoring-wise, but those 9 assists were a big reason as to what allowed Tennessee to really pull away. And on the flip side for Virginia, this was also another first-year coach in Ryan Odom. You got to also give hats off to him. Second place in the ACC tournament runners-up to a really, really good Duke squad, who is my favorite to win it. Excited to see what he does in year 2 as well. So other than that, I'm excited to see Tennessee move on because I had them in my bracket going to the next round. Now, for this next game, this was one I was also very much looking forward to. Number 7, UCLA, and number 2, UConn. UConn ended up pulling away in this one, 73-57, but the score does not tell you this whole story. As we know, Dan Hurley and Mick Cronin, the biggest hotheads in the game of college basketball right now. And I will tell you, this game had that in it. You knew one of them was going to get a tech, and it ended up happening to be Mick Cronin that did it. I would have, if I had to put my money on it, Mick Cronin would have been the guy that I put my money on to have a tech in this game. Now, it looked like UConn was running away with it for a second, but UCLA came back and got on a 10. They went on a 10-2 run to get back in it and make it a 58-54 ball game at the under 8 media in the second half. But out of that timeout, UConn goes on a 5-0 run and Mick Cronin gets a tech. Now, of course, Mick Cronin gets a tech. We're seeing this all the time. So that's where I'm thinking, Mick, in that situation, now, when you look at the video, all he was doing was clapping. Now, throughout the game, as we know who Mick Cronin is, he was definitely saying stuff the whole way through. So other than that, Mick Cronin has to learn. In games like that, techs like that change momentum right away. You're already on a 5-0 run because it's a game of runs. It's going to happen. But this changed the momentum for the rest of the game. After that, that's why I'm saying Mick Cronin's got to be more thoughtful of when he does little things like just clapping where the ref's going to hear. If you're saying stuff in his ear all game, like we know you are, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt you in the fact just by doing the little thing of clapping. So other than that, I feel like Mick Cronin cost that momentum that they had just built in that tech when it happened. Even though you can say for sure he was just clapping, but what was he clapping at? He was clapping at the official, in my opinion. So, but this was where there's another part that I was talking about free throws with the Miami and the Purdue game. This also was a big reason as to why UConn won this game. And probably could have been, no, it's not, you can't even blame this as a reason of why Mick Cronin was complaining, because they both shot 21 free throws. UConn hit 5 more of them. They went 19 for 21. UCLA went 14 for 21. Outside of that, that lets you go on that run. Mick Cronin gets your tech. It goes even larger of a disparity, and then you're just not able to get back because you're too far. You're already in the under 8 when you get that tech. Outside of that, that is why UConn ended up being able to pull away from this one. Now, on the other hand, for UCLA, Donovan Dent was so disappointing for me. He only shot 2 of 9 from the field tonight and only scored 11 points. I'm pretty sure he had 6 of those points at the free throw line. It would have been 8 points at the free throw line with 2 twos. He did not hit a 3 all night. If Donovan Dent played like that, UCLA was 100% going to lose that game. You saw it early with their schedule. He was not playing well. They were losing games. Once he finally turned it on, UCLA started winning games and ultimately got into the tournament because of the way Donovan Dent started to play. But so UConn just shot it a lot better. Terrence Reed Jr., he had another double-double with 10 points and 13 rebounds. But the story of the night is Alex Karaban. He had 27 points, 5 rebounds, and shot almost 60% from the field and 50% from 3. This is a guy who's a 4-year guy, and we don't see that in college basketball anymore. People need to talk more about the fact that Alex Karaban and guys that are staying 4 years at schools when they have great games like this. We've seen it from Alex Karaban all year, day in and day out, what kind of guy he is and how he has led this UConn team. He has 2 national championships in the 4 years that he's been there, and they're going to the Sweet 16 for the 3rd time in 4 years. So, Alex Karaban, hats off to you tonight. That was a great performance, and we're lucky that we get to see you one more time, if not 2 more, after you play Michigan State next week. So, let's move to this game that was absolutely mind-blowing of how this outcome happened. Number 5 Texas Tech versus number 4 Alabama. This game was never close. I thought it was going to be close and go in favor of Texas Tech. Now, it was never close, like we just said, and I really think it has to do with the fact that Texas Tech did not have JT Toppin. This is a Texas Tech squad that beat Duke, who is number 1 in the country. Outside of that, with Texas Tech not having their best player and their best transfer they got from the transfer portal, the fact that they have been playing great down in the Big 12, I thought they were going to be fine in this game, especially for the fact that Alabama was missing their second leading scorer in Aiden Holloway. I would have never guessed by watching tonight that they were without Aiden Holloway. And then to add even more on top of that, LeBaron Philon Jr. only scored 9 points. So they were out without their second leading scorer, who is done for the rest of the year due to suspension. And the leading scorer only scoring 9 points. This was crazy, because we have now seen it in back-to-back games of what Alabama has done on the defensive end. They held the Red Raiders to 34% shooting, just like in the Hofstra game, where outside of that first half, Alabama has dominated for 3 straight halves. For a game and a half, it has been Alabama, and they are doing exactly what they are wanting to on the defensive end. So outside of that, that was mind-blowing. Hats off to Alabama. The defense is looking really, really good right now. And there's a way that they are going to stay in this game with Michigan. In my opinion, they will stay in this next game with Michigan, which we will highlight in the next coming a few days. Now, let's go to my next game, which was a game I did not expect to be close at all. And the fact that it was not close and then it became close shocked me today. Arizona was up 18 against number 9 Utah State. Utah State came back and cut it to 5. Now for Arizona cannot allow teams to get back into games like this. Utah State being a mid-major, they have Arkansas next. If you don't put Arkansas away, guys like Darius Acuff Jr. are not going to miss the shots that Utah State missed down that stretch. Now, for Utah State, this game was completely opposite of their first game against Villanova. Utah State dominated the boards. In this game, Arizona out-rebounded them 54-26 and had 22 offensive rebounds. Now, there are 4 guys for Arizona that are absolute studs that are also a massive reason as to why Arizona was able to not give up this lead and continue their run of dominance that they have had all year. Koa Pete, Krivas, Braden Marys, and Jaden Bradley are actually legit, and they all had double digits tonight. Now, I'm going to highlight Braden Marys real quick, because he had 16 on 5 of 7 shooting and was 3 for 3 from three-point range. That was impressive. That was impressive for Braden Marys right now. He's going to be a top pick in this coming draft as a freshman with the best freshman class that we have probably ever seen in the history of college basketball. So hats off to Arizona. They just need to not allow teams to get back into the fight like that. Now, there have been mumblings of Hubert Davis being fired in the coming week. Now, in my opinion, this is the case of what needs to happen. Hubert Davis has had a rough tenure at UNC. He has had back-to-back first-round exits the past 2 years. He lost a 19-point lead this year in the first-round game and a 15-point lead in the championship in his first year, to where if he wins that championship, we are not having this conversation right now. And here's why. He had a bad loss to Alabama when they were a 1 seed, when Jalen Withers took a bad three, just like VCU was taking UNC was taking bad shots against VCU in that game that they ended up blowing a 19-point lead to. That goes to show me that Hubert Davis does not have control of his team. If you are having guys continuously to take bad shots after bad shots after bad shots, when you have a lead, you are not coaching them, and you are the problem. So outside of that, Carolina needs to wipe the slate clean and go outside of the family to find their next head coach. In my opinion, you're going to have Rick Pitino and TJ Otzelberger are the two guys that I am looking at right now to be the next guy in charge at Carolina. I feel like you find your way to get Rick Pitino there. That's a great deal, even though he is 74 years old and probably towards the end of his career. But he has done great things with turning St. John's around, and you don't have to do much with turning a brand like Carolina basketball around. Now, let's move into another head coaching change that has a little bit of hints after today's loss for Kansas. Bill Self is hinting at retirement in his press conference. That is very interesting to think about. This is the fourth straight year that they have not been in the Sweet 16. NIL is changing the way college coaches are having to adapt from what they are used to. And to add on the fact that his best freshman did not play many of these games leaves me to believe this could be true, and we could see Bill Self leave in the next few days. There's going to be more on this to come, more on this. They have a solid recruiting class coming in. So we'll have to see how this all shakes out. It's just a press conference. It's just speculation. So outside of that, anything could happen. Now, to finish this episode up, I'm going to give you the update on the bracket. I'm in about first or second place still, and it's set for how I'm going to win these pools. 1, Duke is going to be your national championships if I want to national champions if I want to win this bracket. These bracket pools, multiple 3 bracket pools. If I'm going to win them, Duke has to be the champion. And my biggest competition is Arizona. If Arizona loses to Arkansas in the Sweet 16, it is home free for me. I am going to win if Arizona loses. The earlier Arizona loses, the better off I am. Unless, even though, yes, Michigan can pull it off in one of my other brackets. But I need Duke to win, and I need Arizona to lose. Outside of that, I'm going to win. So there's my update on the bracket. I'm also in a Survivor League, so we're going to have to pick another team come Thursday for the Sweet 16. But that does it for this episode of the Heavily Contested Hoops podcast. I'm Peyton Mitchell. Continue to show support on TikTok, Spotify, and YouTube like you're watching now, or listening to it on Spotify. The TikTok is HCH_pod. Go ahead and give it a follow if you made it to the end of the video, and have a good week, and tune in for more storylines as we hear them develop.